Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk here on VCY America. As we read through the scriptures, we see many occasions in which God miraculously delivered individuals from harm. I mean, we read of Daniel, whom God sent an angel to shut the mouths of the lions. There was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego delivered from the fiery furnace. Queen Esther and her people were protected when it seemed that they would be wiped out by those who hated the Jews. We think of Peter, whom God sent an angel to open prison doors, and Elijah, who was protected by perhaps the most wicked king and queen of Israel. And while some were delivered from death, others were delivered by death. Hebrews 11 writes of those who were stoned, those sawn asunder, killed by the sword, or suffered in other situations. And so it leaves the question to many, why does God deliver some and not others? Reading through the book of Job, I saw recorded in Job chapter 23, verse 14, it says, "For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him." We don't know the mind of God, but we do know God can be trusted, and God can be glorified in life or in death. Today's program is a true account of what happened just 2 years ago as we learn about the simple service and the sudden sacrifice of martyrs in Haiti, a family who had devoted themselves to serving the Lord at a Haitian children's home until their lives and that of a Christian co-worker were taken. As the scripture states in John 15:13, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Joining us by phone today, we welcome David Lloyd. He is the father of Davy Lloyd. He's a graduate of Ozark Bible Institute in college. After marriage to his wife, Alicia, they moved to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, in order to pursue their missionary calling, a children's home under the name Missions in Haiti. They raised more than 100 children to adulthood, where hundreds of children are educated annually. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, David, you and your wife were founders of the Missions in Haiti ministry. Just tell us about the ministry itself, when it began, what was the purpose of this ministry?
Oh, Lisa and I, we went to Haiti. The doors opened for us after we got married and graduated Bible college. So we went with another organization. Our first 2 years there, just to kind of get the feel of what Haiti needed and what direction the Lord would have us go. So that would have been in April of '98 that we touched down in Haiti for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then after 2 years with that ministry, we just, the need for children to reach out and help the children there. Many of them was not being educated. Many had no parents. Many had one parent that couldn't care for them. Just all kinds of different situations going on. So we felt burdened to start a children's home, and then knowing eventually we'd reach out in the education aspects for Haiti. And so we came to the States in the summer of 2000 to actually, Davy, our son, was going to be born that July, and we started Missions in Haiti at the same time. So Missions in Haiti Incorporated has been around now 26 years.
Wow. And you ended up having 3 children, Davy, Hannah, and Sam. And Davy, I understand, took particular interest in the ministry. He was just a couple months old when you took him to Haiti. Were you concerned about going to Haiti at that time with him being a young child?
No. In Haiti at that time was not the best place, but it was by no comparison of what it is now. I mean, there were still doctors there, hospitals. We could get around and go to school, and restaurants were open, and things were functioning normal at that time. So really no concern. We were in a safer area at that time. Mm-hmm. And just, normal concerns is when you're having a little one and it's your first child. And I know, thinking back, we did things that were kind of funny at the time, but I got an air purifier for his room because so much dust in the air and stuff. But after a few months, you realize that's not really going to help any. That's not really any purpose to it. So, no, nothing too concerning. I think all of our parents had some concerns, but we were living there, and we were learning Haitian culture and all about Haiti, and so just one day to be a part of it.
Sure, but you did have quite a traumatic event. I think it was in 2005 while in Haiti.
Yes. 2004, they overthrew the President Aristide, and he had started, or during that time, it had started a lot of kidnappings. Little gangs were rising up and making money through kidnappings. So I had left the missionary community alone until that October the 28th, 2005. My wife came to pick up Davy and our daughter Hannah, and one of the girls from our home rode with her to pick them up. I had an after-school meeting. I was working at an American school at that time. So I put them in the car. I said, I'll see you guys in a little bit. And they got a block from the school, and there was pickups waiting there for them, blocked them where they couldn't go anywhere, and got out and put a gun to my wife's head and said, scoot over. She said, I'm not scooting over. And they eventually pulled her out of the car and then drove off with Davy and Hannah and Miriam. So word got back up to me in a few moments, and the weight of it hits as a father, that your children are kidnapped, and you don't know, what you had an idea it was probably going to be a money situation, but I knew they didn't know our phone number, and cause we never really expected that to happen. But immediately they got on the phone and got people praying, and it went across the world. From what I understood, that churches started praying, people started praying, and the next morning I got the call from the kidnappers, and I talked to Davy, Hannah, and Miriam, and they wanted $300,000, $100,000 each. That was not something we could just come up with. So we kept praying, and long story short, there was a group of police that were actually looking for them and helping us, and they called us about 2 hours later and said, come pick them up at the police station. We've got your children back. So
God answered
it was truly
prayer.
a miracle.
Yeah, God answered prayer. And I can't imagine, how old was Davy at that time?
5.
5 years old, and the other is younger, and cannot imagine, as a parent, the trauma of having those little ones kidnapped at that particular time. But Davy grew up. He assisted you in ministry there, and one day in his life, he met a lady by the name of Natalie, daughter to Ben and Naomi Baker. Tell us about Natalie.
Oh, she's an amazing young lady. That was one of the concerns Lisa and I had with Davy coming to the States, going to Bible school, because he told us when he left, he says, I'm coming back to Haiti to work here. He goes, he loved Haiti. It was part of had his heart. So we were concerned that, could he find a wife that can handle the conditions of Haiti? And so he went to the Bible college, and with that in his mind that he was going to come to Haiti, and out of the girls that were attending, he found one that wanted to go to Haiti also.
Wow.
And she came the first time when they were just starting to like each other. She came with the group and just fell in love with the country and the people, and then fell in love with Davy, and they got married. And I always tell people it takes a special young lady at 19 to say, I don't need coffee shops, I don't need Amazon, I don't need Walmart, I'm going to a third world country.
Wow.
And she did it very willingly and never complained, and always had a smile on her face, and just enjoyed being around the children there and helping in any way she could.
So Davy and Natalie married in 2022 and actively engaged in serving at the Missions in Haiti ministry. What was Davy's role at the time?
Oh, just basically doing whatever needed to be done. He was a tremendous, gifted young man. He could do mechanics. He could do anything in construction. Taught himself welding. So he was just doing a lot of maintenance around the compound with that many people using it. The school, about 450 kids using the school buildings every day. The bathrooms, stuff wears out. And the children's home. And then he had a class. He was teaching to the high school kids there, and helping in the church, preaching, Sunday evening, and just whatever role needed to be done, he was there to do it, stepped in, and it was really very, what's the word I'm looking, reassuring, and just that we had help, because Elisa and I, we'd had short-term help over the past years, but and then, of course, the Haitian staff, but having somebody that grew up in Haiti and just knew the people, knew what direction we were wanting to go and achieve. Just being, a right-hand man there, that we could come in then, spend a couple weeks, and then knowing that everything would still be working and running when we got back, and then then Natalie and Davey could come in and take a couple weeks, and it was just a very, very nice time. The prayer that we had, that Lord send us some help, we felt had been answered, and just developing some future goals that we felt the Lord would want missions in Haiti to be involved with in the future, and looking forward to when the gang situation settled down, to open more churches and schools as the doors open there throughout the country.
Mm-hmm. And how did Natalie's parents feel about her going just as a young gal and heading to this, as you put it, the third world country?
Yeah, well, they were mission-minded people also. They've done many mission trips, and did a lot of work over in India, and has been in other countries. And just growing up in church, both of them that were very mission-focused, missionary-focused, missionaries through all the time. So they were excited for them. One of our uncles pastored a church there in Missouri, and his brother is also a missionary in a different. He's in Vanuatu, but he would always joke with me. He'd be like, "You're my number 2 favorite missionary," and then because of his brother was number 1. And then, but when Davey and Natalie started, the uncle come up to me, and goes, "You're moving to number 3 now." I was like, "I understand." So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So
they were very supportive.
Davey and Natalie ministering together there, and I'd like you to introduce us to another individual, and that would be Jude Montes. Tell us about Jude.
Oh my, Jude! He's a tremendous man of God. He had worked for us for over 20 years. He started off just being a tutor to the Haitian children in the afternoons, and he was going to college, and we just saw that Jude had so much potential and so much moral capability in his life, and just a man you could trust, that he just worked himself up very quickly to be our right-hand man. When I wasn't there, he was in charge, and whatever role needed to be filled, he just jumped in and filled it. Everything that missions in Haiti had accomplished, he had his hand in it. Over the schools, helping in the church, making sure that children were doing what they were supposed to do. Hardworking, tremendous man of God.
And so Jude worked right along side by side with you, with Davey, Natalie, and the team there at Missions in Haiti.
Yes, yeah, he was part of the family. I know our children called him Uncle Jude growing up, because they grew up as he was there with us many times, and around our table and enjoying fellowship or a meal or something. But part of the family. His children actually call Lisa and I Grammy and Pappy.
Okay.
We're very close to him.
Well, after a couple of years with Davey and Natalie, then on the team there actively, there was an increase in gang activity that was happening. How did overall that gang activity impact the nation?
Yeah, that's one of the things we look back on, and it was, as far as where the mission was located, we had gangs that were operating around us, but most of the time they wouldn't even come down our street. Sometimes they'd come by and ask for some bread or something from the bakery, but you'd see them when you go to town. You'd have to go through the checkpoints and just deal with that, and then come back through with the supplies. But they always just greeted me and asked me how my church was doing, and I think some of them even had children in school there, but they wasn't really bothering us at that moment.
Okay, and we're going to pick up with this right after the break. We're talking with David Lloyd, and he and his wife have co-authored a book entitled Strong to the End, The Simple Service and Sudden Sacrifice of the Martyrs in Haiti. Back with more in a minute here on Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, Noah's Ark explorer from the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, where did Noah build the ark?
Chris, we simply don't know where Noah lived nor where he built his boat. This is because the flood of Noah's day totally restructured the surface of the earth. There are no geographical remnants of that pre-flood world. Everything about that world is totally gone. Now, it is true that 2 of the 4 rivers named before the flood are the same names as today's rivers, but I suspect that Noah named these rivers like he did because they reminded him of the previous rivers. They couldn't have been the same because beneath these rivers are tens of thousands of feet of flood-deposited strata. They simply didn't exist before the flood. At least that's how I see it from a back-to-Genesis perspective.
Thanks, Dr. John. If you'd like to go back to Genesis, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, Strong to the End, our topic. That's also the name of the book that's been written by David and Alicia Lloyd, and talking about really the service and the martyrdom of their son and daughter-in-law and special ministry co-worker as well that happened just a couple years ago. And telling that story, we'll be telling you how you can obtain a copy of this a little bit later in our broadcast today. But David, we were just beginning to talk about what was happening in Haiti during this year of 2024, the impact of gangs, and just as that break came upon us, you said, yeah, gangs were there, but really didn't bother you. I mean, you went through checkpoints, you had some, interactions with them, giving them some bread from your bakery from time to time, but did you ever feel a personalized threat coming from any of the gangs?
No, I know other missionaries, mission compounds down there, they've had to pay protection money, and I was never asked to do that. They might come by and say, hey, my daughter's birthday's tomorrow, can I have $5 to get her a present, just something like that, mild, but no huge amounts to keep from things happening. So, no, we just never had, still to this day, scratching our head as to what happened the day after I left.
Yeah. So, and I'd like to bring one other concept in, and that is voodoo. This is something that impacted the gangs as well, correct?
Yes. A lot of the gangs, they believe if they do enough voodoo, the bullets can't kill them. And then so we asked, they said, well, if this one got killed, what happened? Well, he didn't have enough voodoo on him. It ran out in the middle of the battle. So that's why that bullet was able to affect them. But, yeah, they go at it knowing that they are controlled by the devil. In fact, I actually heard an interview somebody had paid, a reporter from over in Europe. I saw it online about 2 years ago, and he had paid a gang member to go in and interview him and asked why are they destroying the country, killing people, burning mud huts, and just the poor people just being so mean to them. And the gang leader replied with the most honest answer I've heard, and he said, when we get in these battles, something takes over us, and we have no control of it.
Wow.
He says, so we cannot be responsible for the people we kill or for the children we're abusing and the destruction we're causing because we can't control it.
Wow. So that whole aspect of satanic influence through this voodoo, very, very evident. And David, I'd like you to take us back to May of 2024, just over 2 years ago in Haiti. Many of us were observing the news. We know it was not business as usual in Haiti as gangs came to cripple the Haitian government. But describe for us what was taking place as action from the gangs intensified.
Yeah, early February, up to February of that year, the gangs had been a lot of fighting amongst themselves against each other, trying to take over somebody else's territory. And in February of that year, they said, instead of fighting each other, let's just fight the government and agree that we're not going to kill each other, but we'll take over areas that isn't gang controlled. So they had started doing that. So that kept, of course, they were outmanned and outgunned. The Haitian police were at that time, and probably still are. They're working on trying to improve that. So they were able to shut the airport down because they shot the airport up at that time, and then up to the May there. So things were. It was getting a little bit more serious, but once again, our school was functioning, our commercial bakery was functioning, everything was functioning, never missed a church service. You might hear gunshots in the distance daily, but it never hindered the school from operating. We had school pretty much every day. The children would come from the area, and people were just learning to coexist with the gang that was in control of our area. And then I left. My wife had flown out. She was out of some medicines that was prescription she needed a couple weeks, and then the flights resumed in the end of May again, and So I went to Davey and Natalie, and I said, hey, the flights are flying next week. I said, would you like to get a ticket? And they both said, no, you and Sam go, and then you guys come back in a couple of weeks with Mom, and then we'll go take our couple of weeks to recoup and visit family and different things. So it was the week before. So on May the 22nd, that Wednesday, Sam and I boarded a plane and flew to Tulsa, Oklahoma here, where we're based out of Oklahoma. And I never imagined that would be the last time I'd see Davey and Natalie and Jude alive on this earth.
When you left Haiti, did you feel imminent danger at that time?
No, I mean, it was always a concern. You know, you knew that these gangs are around you, and you knew that they're full of the devil, and you can't trust them. But like I said, up to that point, there was no really fear that death would be the result from them. I always would more fearful with the kidnapping again, because they could, it usually was about money. So if they wanted some money, they could kidnap one of us, and then we'd have to pay a ransom to get them back. That was probably our biggest concern.
Yeah. So I understand at this time, Davey's like 23 years old, his wife 21, and yet for being so young, they really had a handle on so much, didn't they?
Yes, they were mature way beyond their years.
Yeah. So you and your son Sam got out of the country. He and your wife, you and your wife then went off to get some fast food at a McDonald's, and that's when you got a phone call over WhatsApp. Tell us about this call and what you learned.
The first call it was Sam and Elisa went to McDonald's to get dinner that Thursday afternoon, and then Jude calls and he said, Pastor, my wife was at the church, and she said when youth was dismissed at the church, there was a group of guys out, gang guys, and they grabbed Davey and took him into the mission compound. And I said, Jude, are you serious? Yeah. He goes, I don't know what's going on. I said, Jude, I need to know what's going on. What's happening? So he lived about a block from the mission compound. He goes, I'm going over there right now to see what's happening. As he's getting over there to the gate, the first group, the first gang was actually leaving then in our vehicles, and they had loaded them up with all the stuff they wanted and was leaving the mission compound. So Jude went in and found Davey, and this is probably, I'm guessing 10 or 15 minutes after the initial call, and then they call me back, and Davey's on the line. He said, Dad, they took everything. Sorry. I was like, well, there's nothing to be sorry about. I said, there's nothing you can do about that. I said, I'm just glad you guys are okay. I said, how are you? And he goes, well, I got blood running down my head from where I was hit with the gun, the butt of the gun. And actually, I learned later that they had slammed his head in the concrete wall a couple times. And I said, well, you need to go to the hospital. He said, I will, but I got to get a couple things lined up here and make sure the kids will be okay, and then we'll go. And then he goes, Dad, something else is happening. I've got to go. And he says, they might be back or something, to that extent. Something's happening. I got to go find out what's happening. He hung up.
We're going to pick up with that in just a moment, but I want to talk about what's happening during this time between phone call number 1 and phone call number 2. I understand that you immediately went to prayer, and I know you had this feeling, reading your book here, that you wanted to fix everything, but you couldn't. Prayer was your only recourse. So talk about that impact that moment you had in your life in the matter of going to prayer.
Yes, that's all you can do. What am I, 2,500 miles away, and not knowing what was going on at that time to even know what I needed to do. As soon as I got off the phone, I just fell on my face in the chair and just started calling out to God. I'm praying a few moments, and the door opened, and it was Sam and Lisa coming back in, and I said, Davey and Natalie, if there's a gang, they need prayer, and both of them just immediately hit the floor and started calling out to God on their behalf.
You also sought at this time to get a hold of Natalie's parents?
Not at that moment, because we didn't know what was going on.
Okay.
After the second phone call is when we realized, well, when Davey said something else was going down, I did get a call back through. I don't know, 30 minutes later, it was Jude. He answered, and he said, Pastor, it's not good. All the windows are shot out. That's when I understood they were in Elisa and I's personal home. Jude, that's how he got involved, because he had went over there to let Davey use his phone to call me. So Davey and Natalie and Jude was down at our house using our satellite internet, and everybody else ran to the mission house. And he says, it's not good. He said, all the windows are shot out, and we need some help. And then Davy's like, please get somebody here soon. This is, it's going to be dark. And he goes, it's not good. That's when we, I think, started reaching out to the Bakers and trying to let them know that it was a serious situation and it was not good.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to point out, before all of this unfolded, there was a youth service that was going on, a 4 o'clock youth service, and there was a Q&A time, and Davy said, please understand, God does not want anyone to end up in hell. He's looking for people who truly love him and are willing to lay down their lives for him. So the question for you and me is, are you ready to meet Jesus? I mean, this was his message from his heart just shortly before this all unfolded.
Yes. We learned that from the youth leader, Evangel, the Haitian youth leader, after we went back to Haiti a couple weeks later, of Davy's last sermon in the church. Basically, he had preached that Sunday night when I was there. He wasn't in charge of youth that night, but he said, it just feels like the Lord's prompting my heart. I need to say this.
Wow.
And he encouraged the 35, 40 young people from our home and from the area that don't play with Christ, live every day like it could be your last day, and be ready to meet Jesus at any moment, because this world's wicked.
Yeah. So if you would, David, I know it's painful to recount this over and over again. It's so fresh yet, just a couple of years ago. Unfold for us, though, what happened as Davy was apprehended.
So from what we understand, and this is, from the eyewitness, from the children there, and from some of the staff that was there, the first group, drug him in and kept preaching to them, quoting scriptures and telling them they need to get right with God, and that Jesus loved them and died on the cross for them, and they could have a better life. And every time they would tell him to shut up, and he says he'd just keep preaching. And from what I understand, that's why they would slam his head into the wall, because they'd tell him to shut up. One of the young men that we raised, he looked at Davy. He grew up with Davy and good friends with him, and he said, Davy, just lay there and shut up. He said, and so they'll quit, hitting your head. Let them get what they want to get and get out of here. And he looked at Jonas, and he said, Jonas, this might be their only chance to hear about Jesus. He said, I can't be quiet. So that was the first group. Unbeknownst to anybody, but it was later they remember hearing it. The group kept saying, we got to go before the second group gets here. We got to go before the second group gets here. I believe there was a couple that heard the gang members mention that. So they didn't, now that when they see that it happened, that it reminded them that, hey, we did hear that, and they know that another group was on its way.
So we're talking different gang groups then, correct?
Yes.
Were these rival gangs, or this is just how business was conducted there?
They would be rival gangs, but like I said, at that time they had that pact that one gang wasn't supposed to attack another gang's area. The first gang we think was from an area that was over from us, not from the initial area, and the second gang was the gang from my area there.
Friends, we're going to pause right here because we're just seconds from a break, and we're going to continue with the story here of David and Natalie and how they were called to be martyrs for Jesus Christ, and how they gave their lives even in uttering the gospel forth. I mean, witnessing to their captors at the time, concerned for their spiritual well-being. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, also we'll tell you how you can obtain a copy of this book that tells the story. It's entitled Strong to the End, The Simple Service and Sudden Sacrifice of the Martyrs in Haiti. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network.
When someone becomes a believer in Jesus Christ, their life has come under new ownership, moving from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. From the day of salvation, God continues at work in the life of the believer through the power and working of the Holy Spirit. Day after day, our spiritual growth occurs as control is yielded to the Spirit of God. In the book, Deep Roots, Good Fruit, author Kristen Elizabeth Couch uses story and scripture as she shares teachings on the transforming fruit of the Holy Spirit. Learn of love, a heart that gives, peace, the calm in the storm, faithfulness, fidelity to the finish line, and other fruits as well. Deep Roots, Good Fruit, available for a donation to VCY America of $15 or more. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. We're talking today on Crosstalk with David Lloyd. He's the father of Davy Lloyd. He and his wife Natalie, married in 2022, actively engaged in serving in the Missions in Haiti ministry. A dear friend of the ministry, actively engaged as well, Jude Montes, telling his story as well. We're unfolding that. But friends, I just want to make you aware that this book entitled Strong to the End really tells the amazing story of the simple service and the sudden sacrifice of these precious martyrs in Haiti. It really is a powerful read. It will challenge your own commitment to follow Jesus. This is a book that regularly retails from the publisher at $15.99. However, our bookstore is featuring this book on a special discount through this Saturday, August 1st. And they're offering it for the remainder of this week at 50% off, which is just $7.99 plus any applicable tax and or shipping to you. Or those in the vicinity, you can stop by and pick it up and save the shipping, but otherwise they'll ship anywhere across the United States. It's available online at vcy.com, or by calling 1-888-722-4829. That's 1-888-722-4829. And friends, yes, we often read about martyrs of the faith. We go back and we read about William Tyndale and John Huss and others, but keep in mind this is still happening in our present-day society. I just read the other day, too, what's happening in so many nations right now. People who are paying the ultimate, giving their life on the sake of their faith and trust in Jesus Christ. And that's exactly what happened with Davy and Natalie Lloyd as well. So telling their stories today, but you can reach out to our bookstore and obtain the story, really go further in depth in the matters we're talking about today, vcy.com or 1-888-722-4829. David Lloyd is with us here today, and David, we were talking about the gang number one coming on in, and they were saying that they needed to quick leave because there was going to be another rival gang that was coming in there, so take it from there, and then share up to us what with our listeners here today what ultimately took Davy and Natalie's life.
Yeah, so the first gang, they left out with the vehicles and everything that they could load in to the back of them. And then Jude, he got over to the house, and I was talking to Davey on the phone there when he said, "Dad, I got to go. Something else is happening." At that time, I realized, the first group, we had just hit our knees and started calling out to God in prayer, and now realizing that something else is going on and not really know what it is. We're praying, but at the same time I'm trying to call different people in Haiti that I thought maybe could give some assistance as to what was the situation. And then praying and calling and just trying to figure out what was happening. And then when I finally got the call back through, Jude, he answered his phone and he says, "Pastor, it's not good. The windows are all shot out and they just keep shooting, and none of us is hit, but it's not good." And then Davey in the background's like, "Dad, it's getting dark. I'm getting tired." He says, "If you can find somebody that we can help, we need it." And then I was able to, "Natalie, are you okay?" And she, "Yeah, I'm okay." I heard her voice, and that would be the last time that I talked to him.
Were there any local authorities you could call, or were they just totally overpowered by these gangs?
Yeah, there hadn't been any police in our area since February of that year. They ran them out and killed the ones that were over our area. So there was no police in the immediate vicinity. There was possibility for some SWAT. I called somebody that knew some of them, and one agreed. And then on his way, he ran into another group, and they was like, "You can't go down there right now. There's not enough of us." and then they turned around and pulled out. They said they wouldn't be able to do anything. I know Ben and Naomi, of course, they were trying to use his political contacts there to see if they could get some help from the states. But everything was just moving so quickly that nothing could be pulled together quick enough.
So that call is the last time you heard Davy's voice and Natalie's voice?
Yeah, yes. Didn't hear anything else. I was getting a few messages from other staff. I know some of our young people that we had raised that we were in contact with, and they would inform us they were still shooting. Sometimes they would say the shooting has stopped, and then a little bit later we'd say that they're shooting again. I called one of the young men that I already had mentioned. His name was Jonas. I said, "Hey, can you go? I know you're taking your life in your own hands, but go find out who's in charge of what's going on over there." He was about 3 blocks away and had gotten over the back wall. He was actually at the compound when it started, but he fled over the wall. And see if you can talk to who's in charge and see how much money they need in order to stand down, and we can figure out what we need to do. We need to get it to him. It won't be tonight, but I said, I'll work on it. And he agreed to do that. He was a very brave young man, and he said he got about 2 blocks from the mission compound, and guys were there, and they were beating on him and said, "You're a fool for coming back over here." But he's like, "I need to," and they drug him back over to the area in front of the gate, our gate, and he said basically there was 2 different groups, and they were arguing back and forth. One group said, "We're here to destroy everything. We're going to burn their school. We're going to kill all the children. Anything the white missionary is involved with, we're destroying it." The other group says, "No, that's not what we've been sent to do. We were only sent to kill the white guy and his 3 kids." So I assume that was me, Sam, Davy, and Natalie. They must have not realized that Sam and I had left the day before.
Yeah.
He said he heard both arguments back and forth, and then ultimately the guy that said, "This is not what we sent here to do," he said basically they wouldn't let him get any word in, as far as trying to offer finances to stand down or anything. They just said, "This we've been sent here to do." And he also said it seemed like everybody was high, drunk, or demon-possessed. He said there was no reasoning. You couldn't reason. And he said they beat him pretty bad, threw him on the ground, told him to get out of there. If they see him again, he will be killed also.
Wow. And as you're talking here, David, I'm thinking of the verse from John chapter 10 where the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And that's exactly what was taking place here at this particular point, as if they were, had been taken over. As you mentioned, the impact even of voodoo and that satanic influence is this taking over in this endeavor here. Well, I'm thankful for the rest of the verse. It says, "But Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life, have it more abundantly." And I know that was Davy's prayer, is that they would come to know this abundant life. But what did you learn then? Was it that actually took Davy and Natalie's life? Was it the shotgun? Was it the beatings?
As far as we know, it was probably a knife or a machete. We don't really know for sure. It sounds like they were beat. Natalie, we don't know. In the book, it describes the Haitian autopsy report, what they had kind of recorded. We opted not to have one done in the States because we didn't feel it was necessary.
Right.
But, so it was, I don't think it was a quick, easy death.
How did you receive word of their death?
Later that evening, finally, one of our staff, a young lady, caught a hold through. Phone service is spotty down there a lot of times. It takes several times to get through, and she got a message through on WhatsApp and said the gang just walked up to the mission compound, and they said that they were leaving for the night, that they killed the white people, the 2 white people, and the bad guy. They called Jude the bad guy. And she said that it's safe for us to go out and come out now. We can go to, everybody go to bed. The shooting's over. We're leaving. And so I sent a message back, and I said, actually I called Jonas, and I said, "Hey, they said they've left. Can you confirm that they have been killed?" And it's not just, so then I found out that the house was on fire, and so that they had to put the fire out. And then finally 30, 40 minutes later, they got back and said Natalie was actually laboring, breathing, but Davy and Jude had both been set on fire and was deceased. And they were trying to get a vehicle to take Natalie to the hospital. But before they got a vehicle there, she passed also.
So what is going through your mind at this time, David, and your wife Alicia? What's going through your minds at this time?
That's a good question. Initially, when you got the report that Natalie was still breathing and they was going to get her to the hospital, we're trying to figure out how to get to Haiti to get her out of there, So we're still trying to just, the man and me trying to solve the problem, trying to fix what we could at that moment. And then, then I actually was was in the vehicle, left the house to meet Ben and Natalie's uncle. We was going to fly down that night to get Natalie that next morning and get her out of there. But, 30 minutes from the house is when I got the call and said she had passed, and just turned around and come back. I guess at that moment it would be shock. It would be, like, God, what happened? We'd been in Haiti at that point 26 years. We had seen God intervene every time we prayed. The kidnapping situation, other scary situations, we pray, and God just pushes the enemy back. He always showed up exactly how we wanted him to show up, exactly when we needed him to show up. So we're kind of thinking, like, why didn't that happen tonight like that? What's going on? And I'm just, as one lady said, I put it, and looking back, I understand it, having a lot of why, God, and, what's this all about? Why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, even as I quoted earlier from the book of Job, he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. We don't always have the answers to the reason why, but we know God is at work, and we'll talk more about that here. But your book provides details on their remains being flown back to Kansas City and then on to Neosho, Missouri. There were many people that showed up to honor along the route, did they not?
Yes. They were well received as they entered into Neosho, the hometown there.
Mm-hmm. How did that impact you to see the people that had shown up?
Just the love and respect that the people had shown for Davy and Allie. Some of them knew them, and some of them didn't. It's amazing, when God's people pull together. That's what I've said many times the last 2 years. God, being part of God's family is a great family to be a part of.
Yeah. Friends, just due to our story element today, I'm just choosing not to open phone lines because I want to share more of what's happened since that time and about even our guest returned to Haiti. But I do want to make mention of this book again as it goes into detail to tell you the story of these three individuals martyred on behalf of the Lord Jesus, their faith in him and trust in him and serving him. And the book is entitled Strong to the End, really giving this story of the sacrifices of these precious martyrs in Haiti. A book that, as you read it, really causes the reader to think about their own commitment to the Lord and will I follow Jesus, whether it be by life or by death. The book is being featured at 50% off through this Saturday, August 1st, just $7.99 plus any applicable tax and or shipping. It's available online at vcy.com or by calling 1-888-722-4829. They really want to get this book in your hands to share the story, but to see the commitment and really to question that commitment is my commitment there. We're so filled with entertainment and all the things that this world has to offer today. Am I prepared to follow Jesus, whether by life or by death? We'll take a quick break and come back and finish off the story today. And does this war continue in Haiti? What's happening at this point? Stay with us. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. This week aboard Air Force One, President Trump said it again. This is the third or fourth time he has said that Israel would not exist if it was not for him. Well, folks, we certainly appreciate the president and his administration standing with Israel in for their protection. But this statement that he keeps making, that Israel wouldn't exist without him, is a very dangerous statement, because we know that God is the one that protects Israel. He has promised to protect Israel. And yet I'm concerned for President Trump that a Nebuchadnezzar moment may be coming, that God may have to, humble President Trump and also judge America at the same time in order for the world to see that he is God. He is a jealous God. Let's pray that President Trump stops saying this and understands it is God who neither sleeps nor slumbers and is the one that protects Israel.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America. David Lloyd, our guest today, father of Davy Lloyd, father-in-law to Natalie, just married in 2022, actively working in the missions in Haiti. Also Jude Montes, martyred on account of his faith as well, dear friend of the ministry and friend of the family as well. David, I understand you returned to Haiti afterwards. So how long a period was it after the martyrdom did it take before you returned to Haiti? And were you concerned? I mean, you were the one that they were looking for.
Yeah, we returned about 4 weeks after their death, after the funerals, and focus was just to reassure our staff and children that we haven't abandoned them, and we still love them, and they're part of our family. So when I mentioned I was wanting to go, my daughter says I need to go too, and then Natalie's father wanted to go, and Ben wanted, her father Ben and her uncle Bobby. So we planned a trip to go. The first trip back, it was a little, everybody was very nervous because if I was the target, they was afraid that even though we're not going to be in that area, I haven't been home since May 22nd, 2024, that even just being at the airport and where we had relocated the kids, we could be a target. So I took some extra precaution, hired an armored car and security and different things. Looking back now, it wasn't necessary. They weren't coming over into that area. But, just took some extra precaution with us going in shortly thereafter. Once we got there, the children, young people, and staff, they were amazed that Natalie's father and uncle actually came because the uncle had been, but the father had been and never been to Haiti. And they just couldn't believe that, country that caused his daughter's death, that he would still have enough love for him to show up and just hug on them and love them, and just like Natalie did. And so it was a good, just reassuring the children and the staff that we were still there for them.
Does the work continue in Haiti?
Yes, we were actually where we relocated them right after that. Gangs overran that area. It was getting closer and closer, so we eventually relocated to the northern part where the gangs have not reached yet. Although if something doesn't happen, eventually they'll be up there also, because it just keeps spreading farther and farther out. Yeah. But the children and key staff has been relocated to the north. As far as the mission compound, it's really not being used. The school building is being used by some of the teachers that we had and previous students that they have nowhere to flee to. They have no means to be able to flee, so they're still using the buildings, but not going on like everything that we used to be involved with. Just right now is focus on keeping them safe as best we can.
How has God strengthened you and your wife over these last couple of years?
Well, the process is one day at a time. Just continually seeking Him, and I've had some personal conversations with Him as to why and why you want us to go through this pain and everything. One of the initial conversations right when this was going on was why. And where were you? Why didn't you show up? And then after getting back to Haiti and just hearing how Davey continued to preach, all the way up to his dying breath, I realized that God did show up. He just didn't answer the prayer the way we was wanting him to answer, but He was there for Davey, because knowing the condition that he was in from the beating of the first group, there would have been no way without God giving him supernatural strength would have been able to stand and continue to preach for hours as that second gang was attacking. So one of the things that was a lady shared with me that went through a tragedy, she goes, you're going to ask why God for a while, but you got to get past that and ask God, what now, God? And I think that's kind of one of the reasons the book is out. Because a couple months after, my wife looks at me and she goes, we got to do something, It's the what now, God. This is what we feel like we need to do, get their story out so it can make a difference in this world for Jesus Christ. People get saved and people will be called into the ministry and people dedicate their life to the Lord. Amen. And as Davey lived, his favorite saying was, I want to live my life intentionally in light of eternity. Yeah,
that was his statement of purpose. I want to live life intentionally in light of eternity. And David, some would look at their life in the early 20s and say, what a wasted life. But Davey and Natalie's life were not wasted, were they?
No, that's one of the things I've thought a lot about. We did a video a year before their death and promoting missions in Haiti that we could show at churches and stuff. And in that video, it was focused a lot on Natalie and Davey being there and all the good things that were taking place and how they were helping. And Natalie in that video gives a comment. She goes, it's been nice to be able to come into an established mission, what the Lloyds have been able to accomplish and be a part of that. But I'm excited to see what God's going to do with Davey in my life. And I know that she was meaning for Haiti. And that was one of the things I asked God. I said, man, they did so much in, a little over a year and a half that they were there with us full time. Don't you think it would have been more beneficial to give them a little longer? And then I ran across the story that we all know of, Jim Elliott and Nate Saint and the guys there that lost their life. And I read that they were on their mission field where God had called them. They were there 5 days. And that's what it took for God's will to be done was 5 days. So I have to trust him that a year and a half, he knows what he's doing. And as Natalie was excited to see what God was going to do with her, Davey and her life, now it's reaching worldwide. I have an interview here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be out in Australia, and they said their radio station covers the whole country of Australia and the whole country of New Zealand. So Davey and Natalie's testimony is going around the world.
And friends, pray that God would take their story and raise up a crop like never seen before of missionaries going forth into the fields. David, thank you for sharing your story with us today and following through with your wife. What's next? And putting forth this book and putting it into print to challenge us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Friends, our guest here today on Crosstalk, David Lloyd, and would like to encourage you to obtain a copy of this book, Strong to the End. It'll challenge you, friends. It is really challenge our commitment, our faith in Jesus Christ, and are we willing to serve him? We have it so easy. We have it so easy. And indeed, we need to lay it on the line, lay it on the altar for the Lord Jesus. Our bookstore has this book 50% off through this Saturday, just $7.99 plus any applicable tax or shipping. Available at vcy.com or 1-888-722-4829. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.